or more in back taxes. And if you qualify, we can guarantee that you won't be writing a big fat check to the IRS, or our services cost you nothing. The first 100 people that call today will get a free tax consultation worth $500. Stop worrying about your IRS problem. We can help you, we promise. Call the tax doctor right now. I mean right now, to learn more.
800-240-4587. 800-240-4587. 800-240-4587. That's 800-240-4587.
Why have thousands of aspiring authors teamed up with Christian Faith Publishing to publish their book? Because Christian Faith Publishing is an author-friendly publisher who understands that your labor is more than just a book. We provide authors freedom and flexibility throughout the publishing process, professional book editing, award-winning design, and some of the highest royalty structures in the publishing industry. And as always, you will retain 100% of the rights to your book.
I was looking to find a company that I could trust, one that assisted in the editing process completely.
The most important qualities that I was looking for was a publisher who was honest and upfront, no hidden costs or fees, and owning the rights to my own work.
Christian Faith Publishing will publish, market, and sell your books in all major bookstores, online booksellers, as well as specialty Christian bookstores. Call for your free author submission kit.
800-978-4812. 800-978-4812. 800-978-4812. That's 800-978-4812.
Fast Track Student Loans can get your student loans out of default, stop any wage garnishments, stop collection calls, and stop seizure of your tax refund. Give yourself a break. Stop the stress and get your student loan payments down to as little as $25 a month based on what you can afford to pay. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395.
Here's important new information from the Diabetes Solution Center for you, a family member, or a loved one suffering with diabetes. If you have lost your provider, or if you need a provider for diabetic supplies, you may qualify to receive your diabetic testing supplies now with little or no out-of-pocket cost, regardless of your age. All you need is Medicare or private insurance to be potentially eligible. Call the Diabetes Solution Center right now for details. Just takes a couple of minutes. Our friendly, knowledgeable agents will give you free, no-obligation information, handle all the insurance paperwork, and make sure your supplies are delivered directly to your door for free.
Call U.S. Medical Supply 24 hours a day. 800-597-9323. 800-597-9323. 800-597-9323. Call right now. 800-597-9323.
Fast Track Student Loans can get your student loans out of default, stop any wage garnishments, stop collection calls, and stop seizure of your tax refund. Give yourself a break. Stop the stress and get your student loan payments down to as little as $25 a month based on what you can afford to pay. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395.
You're listening to Joco Community Radio.
Hello, Jobfather Nation. We should appear on the screen here in just a moment. Oh, there we are. Good morning, Mez. Well, we are excited. Give me just a second. Yeah. We are excited to be here. We have a very special show today. So with that being said, we are proud to be a part of Joco Community Radio, which is the voice of Johnson County, Texas. Joco Community Radio is live 365 on the TuneIn Joco Radio Network app. Good news, you can go to either of your Play stores, whether you have Apple or Android, download the app, and listen to the full lineup, including yours truly, the Jobfather, and more. Now, we are very excited this week to let you know that we are going to have a special day where we're focusing on the season of going through a job transition or a career transition. So let's all bow our head for a quick word of prayer. Our wonderful Jobfather went through some surgery yesterday. He is doing well, so he will not be with us, but we have our wonderful Meg Rose Quiterio, Miss Mez, and we will announce to you in just a second the special plans for the show. But let's bow our head quick for a word of prayer. Father God, we are just so honored to be here to serve the job seeker community. We pray that you would give Mez and I the wisdom and discernment to share with the community, wisdom and knowledge that will help them as they're traveling through this time. Lord, we thank you for all of those doors that you are opening and that you have opened. And I pray you would open amazing doors for every single job seeker out there. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Well, very exciting. So today I'm going to be interviewing Mez on the first half of the show. And we are going to be talking about the realities, tips, treasures, and emotional support. Emotional support when it comes to being in that season of career transition.
Oh, yeah.
So Mez, let's start here. Why don't you give a quick rundown of just your just a quick blip to help the viewers understand kind of when you went through the transition season, about how long ago that was, what led to the transition, and how
Right.
long you were in transition. Let's start there.
So my story is right out of college, don't worry, it's a quick story. Right out of college, I got a quick job with the EPA up in Boston, and then I hated it. But
Uh-oh.
yeah, it was in '09, and brand new biochemical engineer right out of school, could not stand it. But then I went to the oil and gas industry. Schlumberger was my company. Loved the company, learned a lot. 10 years with the same company, wore a lot of hats, different branches of the company, but I only knew that one company. So in Q1 of 2019, I got laid off, and
Okay.
talk about devastation.
Yeah.
Because I kind of look like one of those sharks on this, like Shark Week, where they get hit with a bang stick. Like, what do I do? What do I do? What just happened? Like, I didn't even process what happened until I think a few days later. I had no
Really?
idea. Oh yeah, I had no clue what just happened to me. So I didn't know where to start. I had a resume from college, mind you, in cursive. You know, the pretty fancy
Oh,
script.
I
Oh,
remember that.
yes. That was a thing, guys. That was a thing where your resume, you could put fancy script. You can be like Elle from Legally Blonde and have it
Yes.
scented.
Yes.
Oh,
And you had
I was that
special
person.
resume paper for sure that
I
was
did.
scented.
I did. I did. It wasn't pink, but I did have that. Oh, Lord. It was looking back going, oh, it's like looking back to the '80s going, why did I wear that? What?
Yeah.
No, like,
Yeah.
no, just no. So that's my, that was my layoff story. Got drunk for about a week. Don't do that. Do not recommend that. I'm just being blunt and honest.
Yeah.
I was
It
a
was
hot
scary.
mess. I was a hot mess. I didn't know where to go, what to do. And then I went to church. Stonebriar Community Church is my
Oh,
church.
yeah.
And I went there, and Uncle Chuck announced Frisco Connect. And
Oh,
yeah, so he doesn't normally do announcements. So, and I was half hungover, half drunk still listening. And he,
yeah.
sorry guys, I'm being completely honest.
No, we need the
Yeah,
transparency.
right. And he said Frisco Connect was that coming Tuesday. And I went. The first person I met was Pete Hernandez. Shout out to Pete if you're listening. And the rest is history. I connected with the network. I connected with Foster right off the bat. Connected with South Lake as well, South Lake, and then joined the HR group. Out of all groups I
Ooh.
joined, yeah, they welcomed me. You don't have to be in HR. So I'm like, hi, I'm a biochemical engineer. And they're like,
Huh?
what? Does not compute. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
So, and I've never left the network, and I always wanted to give back, but everybody was telling me, oh, you are going to get snatched up in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Liars. Sorry. But
Ooh.
that is not true. That's not what happened.
Yeah.
But 7 months, everyone, and I got re-overeducated. I am now an IT project manager in the risk management industry. So complete 180
Wow.
on my career. And I didn't want the job that I have, but right now you couldn't pay me enough to leave my job right
Really?
now. No, you could not pay me enough. And I'm talking about horror story of a landing speech. I had posters and everything when I gave my
Whoa.
landing speech. It was so funny, Dana. It was the most awkward interview. I just got rejected from 5, I might count them, 5 jobs that I actually wanted. And I was just like guaranteed. Everybody, they were actually sending me paperwork, getting ready for it. That one day before this horrible interview, I'm so grateful I didn't cancel it. Horrible, horrible interview. All 5 of them rejected me that one day.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm
Yeah.
sitting in
So
my car, just bawling my eyes out.
yeah.
Didn't want to go to this interview. Most awkward interview in my entire life. This guy was talking about his life history, his mom, every awkward personal thing that you could talk about.
You're like, I don't know what to think about this.
I'm already going, yeah, I'm already going through my emotional like processing, and it just didn't compute. And I'm thinking, I bombed that interview. I just want to go home and cry and eat
Yeah.
something. That's all I wanted to do. Eat bread and go to sleep. That's all I wanted to do. And yeah, I got a call back. So I had another interview, and to meet the team, and then I also got rejected from 2 other standby jobs that day. So before I met the
Really?
team, oh yeah, it was bad. My give a crap level was not there.
I get
So
what you're saying.
meeting yeah, no, I just didn't care. I'm like, what do you want to ask me? I don't care. Then I got another interview with this company to meet the leadership team. And then I yelled at the leadership team at the end of it. I was so frustrated. I'm like, how can I get rid of you people? Nope. They gave me a job offer. I'm like, oh, okay, here we go. So I took the job offer, and the person, my boss, which was a horrible boss,
Really?
eventually got fired. So God hears your prayers. I mean, I don't wish that upon anybody, but he was bad. He was really, really bad. I love my company now. My boss that I have currently, amazing. And
Really?
oh my
Okay.
God, I love my boss. I love my team, love the people I work with. Like, you will not get me away from this company. Ever.
Well, I am so excited to hear that. By the way, so Mez, I see we have a couple wonderful listeners with us
I
today.
see
So
that
I'm
too. Hey,
really,
Debbie. Alexis. Hey,
yeah.
guys. Sorry, I'm not typing away in the chat today. It's kind of
Yeah,
weird being the one being interviewed.
yeah, exactly. No, and I'm excited that Alexis is here as well. We've got
Yep.
Derek. Good morning,
Hey,
everyone.
Derek,
Yeah,
Lindo.
we
That's
are
my
so
fiance.
excited. Oh, hey, Derek. I am
Hey,
just so
baby.
excited that we're able to really get to the nuts and bolts because going through this is very traumatic. So, Mez, let's go
Yeah.
back. So, thank you for setting the stage for us. So,
Right.
once you got past the week of drinking and going to Frisco Connect, because it's real sometimes, right?
It is. It's real.
Where did you okay, so Frisco Connect and going to some of these network groups were where you started.
Mm-hmm.
When you found yourself starting to work on interviews, let's share with the audience how you managed to network to get some of these interviews. Where were they through networking? Were they through applying? What did you do to kind of pull together some of these interviews?
That's good. That's a good question. I did a lot of informational interviews.
Okay.
So that was, I know we've been hyping on informational interviews, especially the last few months here, Dana, but when I was doing them, I didn't realize we didn't have a label on it. I was just connecting with these companies. I was more or less looking for defense. So Raytheon, I had a bunch of informational interviews, and I did that through some symposiums that I went to with video, emails, and just networking through the. I think I met somebody at South Lake Focus Group to get a connection. Like her son worked in Marquis Lawton, or just one of those things, like a friend of a cousin-in-law kind of thing. But yeah, it was through the network that I get the informational interviews, and I actually did get a few interviews through the network that way.
Did you? Okay.
Yeah, I did. And then I'm trying to think what other companies. I was looking at more manufacturing. This is before I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to do the whole career change.
Okay.
So in order to get my career change, I went through the network. Shout out to Dr. Orlando with Computer Minds. Everything was paid for. I'm way over certified. I have my PMP, Scrum Master, COBIT, not COVID, COBIT certification, my ITIL, Lean Six Sigma Green Belt.
Now that's awesome.
Yeah, so all of it was paid for. And I thought, I'm not going to be able to get finances for this because I made so much money in my previous job, but that's not the case. So Orlando helped me out, and I was able to get my certifications done in about 3 months, 4 months, which is fast. I mean, I'm not expecting everybody to do that. It was like boom, 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 back to back. So I got my certifications, and then I had to retrain myself to look for different types of jobs. So that's the other kicker. I had to then retrain. I had to completely redo my resume to appeal to these IT companies and to the risk management industry. That was fun. I have like 200 versions of my resume, Dana. I think I told you this before.
Yeah, you did tell me that, and because that worked for you and you felt comfortable writing the resume, and I get that.
Right.
Yeah. So when you how about LinkedIn? Did you use any LinkedIn? Did you apply to jobs? Anything like that? Did that help you at all?
LinkedIn, yes and no, because I did the spray and pray. I think everybody does that to a point, but the jobs that I really, really wanted, it took 2 hours to apply to a single job if I did it correctly. And
Really?
people, yeah, it takes that much time to really do it right. It took about 1 to 2 hours per application for a job I actually wanted. I mean, sometimes you have your master resume on LinkedIn, like, yeah, that one looks good, especially in the middle of the night, you're scrolling on your phone. Yeah, I'll apply to that one, fast apply, or what is it, quick apply, or something. You know what I'm talking about?
I get it. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Yeah. And things were a little bit differently back then too. I think our applications were much more dense,
Yes.
or longer. I remember there's been a lot of changes in terms of the application process from then to now as well. And
That's good to know.
it was like a massive ordeal just to apply to one job back in the day.
It really was.
Yeah.
It really was.
So when you think about going through that time frame and you go back, what are some of the things, and you already mentioned one thing, what are some of the things you did during that time frame to help you stay productive, stay motivated, and to kind of keep that, because we all know anybody that's been through it, it's hard, it's emotionally hard, right? So what are some of the things you did to stay steady, to stay on top of things, and to make sure that you were applying to jobs, to make sure that you were staying positive, that you weren't giving up? Share a little bit about that, the emotional side, and some of the strategies you did in that time.
So strategy wise, this is before COVID, right? So you would actually physically go to these groups, and DFW.org, or what is it, job search DFW.org, that has a big calendar on there that I used, and I would literally do the same thing I'm doing with any other job. I would schedule out Monday through Thursday. I would be going to these networking groups during the day, like in the mornings, because there was one every single morning, and there are still the same. There's something every single day of the week. But Friday, I would take the time to reach out to, family members, friends, and that was my day on Friday to network with professional groups. That's how I met Casey Hastings, Karen. I call her my wife, my second wife, Karen.
Yes.
Yep. And I joined North Texas Lead. Shout out to Sonia. I love
Okay.
them. And I was one of their approved applicants. So I networked with those companies, went to their benefits. They treat a job seeker, English, wonderful language, seeker right, because they
That's
have
good.
these full catered events for the applicants that they approve of. And they have not only the head of HR for these companies there, but the CEOs, the CFOs, everybody is at this like gala basically. So it's a little bit more fancy. But North Texas Lead, that was my Friday thing. And
Okay.
in the afternoons from Monday through Thursday, I would do my applications, do my informational interviews. If I had any interviews to schedule, I would always do it in the afternoons from Monday through Thursday. So I was very organized and very methodical about it. But once
Right.
in a while, I would just take a random Wednesday. I'm like, you know what? I can't, because Frisco Connect was at that time twice a month. So
Okay.
I had a
Mhm.
spot on Tuesdays. So you know what? I'm not gonna to do anything in today. I'm not putting on nice clothes. I'm not putting on makeup. I'm not a gym person. No, I don't run and I'm not a gym person, but I dance. So I would do my dance workouts. I would do meet up with friends for lunch, fellow job seekers that I met through the network, just to have a human element to it. You always have to keep
You
those
do.
because you are going to go crazy. Um, purposely scheduling downtime for yourself really helped. I'm a mother of two, so they kept me crazy as well. So it's not like I had too much downtime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing you brought up that I thought was very smart in terms of using your time was that you educated yourself.
Mhm.
You can go to whatever county you live in. I noticed that different counties offer free programs. I know someone, Rick, who during his layoff was able to get his PMP for free, so he did
Yep.
it. So go to your county website and your unemployment websites to
Right.
look for free training. You can upgrade your LinkedIn for $20 a month or 30, yeah, it's like I think 20 or 30 a month. And
Mhm.
they have all these free courses, and then you get certifications on your LinkedIn to show that you've completed those courses. That's another thing to do. But Mez, let me ask you this. Let's go to the flip side of it. What do
Okay.
you wish you could have done differently or
Oh.
done better, or what would in other words, how that you could relay to some of our job seekers today to help keep them from maybe falling into some of the same
The same
situations or what?
traps.
Because we all have pros and cons to our search, right? So
That's true. That is a very good point. Um, I would honestly say that I wish I got my certification sooner. I
yeah.
saw Dr. Orlando in, South Lake Focus Group. I also saw him at Frisco Connect, and I didn't make up my mind. I think that was the thing I regret the most, because I knew, or I was everybody in my family, when I told them I was laid off, it's like, you're not going back to the oil and gas industry, are you? I'm like, that's all I freaking know, people. Like, come on, give me a break.
So you were kinda like, "Well, what do I do?"
Right, exactly. So I was very indecisive at first. And
Okay.
one thing I am happy was I had friends, and at the time, a significant other that pushed me not to take too much time off at the
Got
beginning
it.
of it. I I I didn't. I'm that person. I'm that gung ho, like, let's do this, let's do it right. So I jumped right into it. And that's not everybody else's style, right? Sometimes you just need that processing time.
Oh, yeah.
But for me, I think it was about a week and a half, 2 weeks like when I was really into it. But I wish I could have gotten my certifications and figured out what I wanted. I knew I couldn't move because of
I
my
get
kids.
that.
So
Yeah.
location, location, location. If you can just figure out what you won't do, eventually what comes
Okay.
out is what you can do and what you want to do. So I wish I figured that process out a lot sooner. And the people that I talk to, weekly phone calls, job seekers, I'm like, okay, location. Are you mobile? Do you want to be remote? These are the questions that I wish I asked myself to begin with, and it would have saved myself a lot of time and a lot of energy. And then I feel like I've wasted a bunch of people's time too, because I'm like, yeah, it's
You just
not
weren't
gonna work. Yeah,
sure.
I just wasn't sure. So
Mhm.
I wish I could go back,
Mhm.
and if I, knock on wood, I won't ever have to do that again. But
Yes, I get it.
but if I could go
Yeah.
back and figure out what I wanted sooner, so I could focus my energy and time, because it's very stressful being pulled in every single direction. Because
Oh,
I'm like an
it
octopus on
is.
skates. I can do this, I
Oh,
can do that, I can do this, and it confuses yourself. It's not fair to anybody, including yourself. So I
right.
really wish I could do that. Shout out J Hop.
Hey, J Hop. I was hoping J Hop
Yeah.
was going to join us today. I was like, where's our trusted buddy?
And Foster's with us too, Dana. Hey Foster, you better be getting
Oh,
better.
Foster! Woo woo! Yes, he better be. That means he's listening from the hospital room. So,
Exactly. Yep. Take care of
but
yourself.
Mez, I want to just really validate what you just said. And I'm excited to answer some of the same questions or whatever questions you want to ask me next half, because I will say one of the things I learned was it's easy when you're in your job and things are going good. And I put off these certifications I need to get.
Right.
And then I realized once everything happened unexpectedly, boy, did I wish
Right.
that I had some certifications. You know what I'm saying? That I had gotten some of these certifications
Yeah.
done. And I'm like, oh, I really do wish that I would have
Right.
ahead of time. And so I guess we can always look at it and learn, but yeah, that's a really good insight. What else would you want to say or share? Anything else that you would want to share from your experience with our fellow job seekers currently that could help them, motivate them, encourage them, anything above?
Don't give up. It seems hopeless and it's like punching water at first, but don't give up. This is hiring season. It's also the start of the holiday season. And believe it or not, we have more landing stories. Dana can affirm this, and Foster can too. We have more landing stories from October through December than anything else, because you may not start until the beginning of next year, but they want to have you on their roster. Dana, I mean, you can
Yeah.
validate that, but don't give up. Focus on what you need to focus, and only focus on what you can control, and give the rest up
Yeah.
to God. Pray, go to church groups, go to
Yes.
networking groups, but please do professional groups. Do cycling groups, do stuff outside the box. Don't just stay in that little
Yes.
job search network group mentality. It's
Right.
amazing who you meet with just your own hobbies, right? Volunteer
Yeah.
at a food or a soup kitchen. This time of year is the best time of year to do it. So,
Absolutely.
so that kind of stuff, because you don't know who you're going to meet, right?
You just don't.
Yeah, you don't. I always have business cards on me, especially when I was in the job search. I had my business cards. Um, I don't like the elevator pitch kind of thing. Have a more humanized version of the elevator pitch, because otherwise you sound like a robot. Just make sure you really do. It's like, or an advertisement. It's like, "Hi, my name is blah blah blah." And it's like, no, 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 no. And all of a sudden,
You're like,
yeah, like you know, don't do that. But
I get it.
yeah, humanize your elevator pitch and just talk to as many people as you can.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely it's definitely a walk that you go through,
Right.
but looking back, a lot of good can come out of it. It really can.
Yes.
You can learn a lot and then prepare for the future. I also learned to be a little bit better about saving money.
Yes, that too. Yeah. I hoard. I'm a tax Nazi anyway, but I've always been a day trader. I've always been uh I told you I got into more day trading when I got laid
Yeah,
off as well. More financial savvy. And I'm actually going to
yeah.
get my certifications to be a financial advisor, I think.
Oh, that'd be
Even though I'm
awesome. I could
employed.
use your help.
Yeah, I love I'm a geek. I love that stuff so much. So yeah, that's the only thing. Yeah. Holly, thank you.
Yes,
Holly, who
this is
else have we got with
awesome.
us? I know we've been talking and everything. Debbie, course.
We've got a good group of people with us today,
You.
Mez. I am so
I
excited.
know.
Well, we're getting close to the second half. It's
We are.
11:30,
Mhm.
so any minute we should hear the music. And then once we get back, Mez is going to do the intro to lead us in, and then she'll start interviewing me. So
Woo! You got to stick around for that one.
so I'm excited. I know. I'm sure it's going to be interesting. I'm
Oh,
like putting
yes.
on my seatbelt.
Hold on a second. We got this. Strap her down. Strap her down.
Strap her down. Exactly.
Get the
And
clicks.
honestly, I am so glad that we're kind of taking to the emotional side of this because it is a walk. And I remember the episode where I shared about going through it. So Mez, your input was so helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll be back. Don't go anywhere.
Let's be honest. Wheelchairs are heavy, bulky, and ugly. If you carry a wheelchair in your car to take care of a loved one, you know how hard it is getting that clunky, old-style wheelchair in and out of your car. Introducing the Feather Chair Wheelchair. At 13 pounds, it's the world's lightest wheelchair. It folds in seconds and fits neatly in your trunk, backseat, or closet, so you can take it everywhere. And it's only available right here. Order yours today and get a free wheelchair case, a $50 value, yours free. The Feather Chair. The world's lightest wheelchair is just $4.99 with easy payments as low as $16 a month. Sorry, no Medicare or insurance accepted. So call right now to order yours.
800-823-5826. 800-823-5826. 800-823-5826. That's 800-823-5826.
Fast Track Student Loans can get your student loans out of default, stop any wage garnishments, stop collection calls, and stop seizure of your tax refund. Give yourself a break. Stop the stress and get your student loan payments down to as little as $25 a month based on what you can afford to pay. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. Fast Track Student Loans can get your student loans out of default, stop any wage garnishments, stop collection calls, and stop seizure of your tax refund. Give yourself a break. Stop the stress and get your student loan payments down to as little as $25 a month based on what you can afford to pay. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395.
Joco Community Radio. Listen live at tunein.com.
Hello. Hello, and welcome back, everybody, to the second half of the Jobfather. I'm Mez. I'm substituting for Foster as he's recovering from surgery with the lovely Miss Dana Greenwich. So we are doing our second half. So I'm going to be interviewing Dana, but before that, I don't have any landings that I know of, but anybody that's landed, let us know and congratulations. And we will announce them when we can. But this has been brought to you by our lovely hostess, Miss Tiffany, and with Jobco Community Radio. Part 2, that's right, Jason. So I'm going to ask you to do the same kind of story and backdrop for your layoff, and then we will go from there.
Absolutely. So, back in March, even though I was caught very off guard by the layoff, the company that I was working for, Corn Ferry, was struggling. However, my account was doing really well. The company that I supported in the RPO space, but RPO in general was struggling all throughout the United States. All of the accounts pretty much were struggling, and then it was also starting to impact the other parts of the country as well.
Mm.
So I knew some layoffs were going on, but I didn't know that it would affect accounts that were being managed well and run well. And so mine came out of the blue, and they made it very clear that it had nothing to do with performance. I know it had to do with salary cost
Just
and
money. Yeah.
yeah, and they got me at a time when salaries were very competitive for the job seeker.
Okay.
And so I'm sure my overhead is what got me in the end, how much it my overhead was. But with that being said, it came from surprise. So as soon as I found out, I was completely numb and tingling. I didn't know what to think. I didn't expect this to happen. I had been performing. I had just gotten back from a trip to Brazil to visit my counterpart and visit the Brazil Corn Ferry office. And it was just painful. So I went into pretty deep anxiety. Um, Not a panic attack, but deep in anxiety. And I did have one or two panic attacks,
Oh.
mild ones, but they sucked. And
Yeah.
no fun.
No.
And it took me about, I say, 4 or 5 days before I could really digest, comprehend everything that was going on, and then begin on the job search.
Right.
So that was the start of mine. This happened at the very end of March
Yep.
2023, this last March.
Right.
And it took me a total of 4 months. And I am so grateful that it only took 4 months, but they felt like pretty long
Yeah,
months.
that's the longest 4 months of your life. It's very
It
scary.
really
Yeah.
was. It really was. Because you go through a lot of
Yeah.
emotions, highs and lows.
Right. So it's interesting because you are a recruiter. I'm not sure what your last
Mhm.
title was. I know there's different flavors of recruiters out there. And obviously you're in HR. So it's very interesting to me that you didn't know. So
Mm.
HR in my mind, everybody knows who's going to get laid off, who's going to be next. It's just it's scary and it's kind of humbling to me going, well, they had time to prep, thinking, all the HR people, all the recruiters I've talked to when they get laid off, it's incredible to me that have basically similar stories to you. That it's very, very rare that I hear of an HR person when they do get laid off that they knew it was coming. So it's actually very interesting and enlightening to kind of hear that side of it. And since you are a recruiter, I have some harder questions for you.
Yes, no, that
How
makes sense.
So I know it was only 4 months and you're amazing. So I'm really surprised it still took 4 months for you to pick up a job.
Oh,
I mean,
thank
you are
you.
absolutely incredible. But
Oh, thank
how
you.
how do you interview? How
Yeah.
does a recruiter slash a hiring manager hire a recruiter hiring manager? Like, what does that look like? What kind of questions do you prep for?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the first thing I had to do was so I knew the areas I was looking for.
Okay.
The previous role I was in was a manager title, but it really operated more like a director level
Mhm.
role. So, the first thing I did before I even started applying or getting ready for interview questions, and just to kind of preface how I got to the interview questions, was I needed to make sure my resume and my LinkedIn were completely up to date, looked good, and
Mhm.
ready to go. Then, as a recruiter, I knew that the role that I previously had could make me qualified for a manager, senior manager, or director level position, depending on the organization and some of the dynamics. So, with that being said, and understanding that, that helped me then look at okay, if I were hiring for a leadership role
Mhm.
and I needed someone to come in to either manage or direct all of our talent acquisition or recruitment activities, what types of questions would I want to know?
Mm.
What would I want to know if I were interviewing for my job? And
Can you
so
give us
I
an
went
example?
and
Like what does that look like? Like
yeah,
what kind of
yeah.
questions would you prep for?
Yeah. So what types of industries have I recruited in and
Oh,
or
okay.
led? What size teams have I
Fair.
led? What is my leadership style?
Mm,
Um, Giving examples of times where I overcame a challenge, whether it be with a individual on the team, whether it was with a process or a hiring leader or a stakeholder, and also giving examples of projects I led, processes that I managed,
okay.
things that I did to positively impact the talent acquisition arm in an organization.
Okay.
And being that I was at Corn Ferry, I was representing the Galderma account and I helped implement the entire Galderma leadership arm on the talent acquisition side for the entire United States. And then I helped support the rest of the world because we kind of led in the US. And I was really grateful for the opportunity, to do that. So I prepared for questions to explain how I led things while I was at Galderma, how I led the team, how we met our metrics, how we were able to manage our stakeholder relationships. All of those things were really important. So I prepared for those kinds of questions. And I would also learn a lot each interview I did. So I would prepare the basic questions and I had a little cheat sheet where it was interesting. One of the companies I was interviewing with, an executive recruiter said, "Hey, I'm going to send you a list of questions. Can you fill these out in depth for me?" And they were great questions. It was a little bit around my leadership styles, a little bit around projects I've led, successes I've had, achievements I've made, how I overcame circumstances and different situations. And I went ahead and used that and kept that sheet in front of me so that when I was interviewing, I wouldn't be caught off guard. And if they asked me any questions about my background or experience, I'd have that right in front of me. Not that I didn't know it, I knew it because it was my experience, but sometimes you get a little choked up and nervous
Right.
in interviews. And even though I'm a recruiter and I've recruited my whole life, I still was a little bit nervous, because I needed to get back to work.
Thank you for being
Now,
honest. Like that's nice
yeah,
to hear, because you would think with recruiters and people that hire so many people as a career, it's
right.
nice to hear that you also get nervous.
Exactly. And so for me, I knew that as a leader, I had to be able to articulate my experience well and articulate how I led teams, how I managed our goals and our metrics and also the different environments I've recruited and led in. Because there's a lot of different types of recruiting environments, and there's a lot of different ways to manage processes based on the type of environment you're in.
Correct.
So it was really just nailing down a lot of those important things and then being prepared to speak to it. And then with every interview I did, I got more and more comfortable with articulating, explaining, and answering questions. And I prepared for the hard questions too, like when they asked, why did you leave your previous company? Even though it had nothing to do with performance and it was strictly a layoff, and I was one of thousands that got laid
Right.
off, you still want to know how to approach that conversation without damaging your reputation individually and the reputation of your previous employer, because nobody wants to hire someone that has something bad to say. Now, the good thing is
Correct.
I didn't really have anything bad to say about them. They were a great company. They just weren't doing well financially, and they had to downsize what they were doing tremendously.
Right.
And then, and my overhead was a lot more than some other people due to the time frame that they hired me in, and other people that got hired around the same salary range I did, they got laid off too.
So it's like
So,
everybody in the pool.
yeah,
Let's go. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. You cost too much, you're out. So,
Exactly. And I think that was part of the reason, now that you brought it up, that I got laid off. I was one of the first ones to get laid off at the end of Q1,
yeah.
but then literally a few months later, the entire facility got shut down.
Are you
I
serious?
mean, you can't make that. I mean, oil and gas is very high or low. There really is. It's very rare
Oh,
that
yeah.
it's consistent. But all right, next question. I'm
Yes.
going
These are
to,
good questions.
I know, I'm going to flip the script a little bit on you. I'm going to pretend I'm interviewing you for a
Okay.
lead, let's say a director position of
Okay.
HR with my company, Mez Incorporated.
Yeah. Okay. Let's do it.
All right. So, Miss Dana, Tell me a time or two situations, one being the worst person you've ever laid off, what that looks like and how you handled it, and the best person that you had to let go of a company.
Yeah. Very good question. Well, first of all, I've been really blessed. I've worked with some great people, so I can't say that I have, an individual that wasn't a performer. However, there are times where we run across individuals that aren't motivated and they intentionally do the bare minimum.
Mhm.
And so my first approach to that is to coach and work with them. If I'm not, I will give them the tools and I will do everything I can to support them. But it is up to them to truly use and implement those tools. And if they're unable to use and implement those tools and their performance um, is not improving based on what we discussed and the goals that need to be achieved, then I have had to do a layoff before, and it was really hard.
Yeah.
It was an individual that I truly liked, but the performance wasn't there.
Right.
In this circumstance, though, because I knew the character of the person and I knew that surrounding circumstances were a bit tough,
Okay.
we were able to repurpose this position in another role. With another client, but a lower level role, which she was perfect for. So, in that circumstance, we were able to repurpose her, but give her less responsibility. And last I heard, she was doing phenomenal.
Oh,
So
good.
that's good.
That's good to hear.
Now, the hardest person I've ever had to lay off, trying to think through some of that because I've had a couple different people. Um, Primarily, it would be nothing to do with performance, but it was really more to do with, kind of the account slowing down and
Right.
not having the volume or the availability,
Right.
to be able to utilize the person. And what's hard about that is this person's great. You don't wanna lose them. You know in the long term you're gonna need them, but the company isn't always able to foot the cost in the meantime.
Yeah.
And so in that circumstance, that's almost harder when someone's a great performer and you wanna keep them, but
Yeah.
you're
It's
not able to do you're not able to do what it takes to keep them at the time. Now that would have been probably the hardest situation.
Yeah. I remember when a bunch of layoffs were happening in the shop that I was working at and talking to the managers afterwards, and you could just see it in their eyes. They were just like, these are good people and they know them personally, and
Yeah.
there is nothing they can do. There's
I
literally nothing they can do. So,
know. It's hard.
if I'm not trying to bring the mood down, but funny story.
No.
To bring us back up again, I talking to my former HR lady, love her to death. She told me of a horror story. She was laying off a guy, and apparently he threw the phone at her on her desk, like threw the phone at her. And I'm like, what did you do? Because obviously a layoff is different than being fired. I think we need to talk about that too. But she grabbed the paper. She was very calm. I don't know how she was calm. She grabbed the paper for, the layoffs. You have to sign this and blah, blah, blah. She just ripped it up in front of him. And obviously he was escorted by security out the building. But that's probably the most extreme case I've ever heard. Yeah, Dana's face is priceless. It's like,
I'm just shocked.
yes.
Yeah,
Like,
that's
especially
extreme.
it's a profession. It's not like kind of lower level positions. This guy was a manager. Like, he was in charge of a lot of stuff. And just to snap like that, it's like, okay, did you run over his dog on the way to work? Like, what happened there? So
Goodness
I just
gracious.
wanted to tell that little story to bring up the mood a little bit. So
Oh, boy.
I know it's crazy. But next question that I have for you is what
Yes.
you had for me. What would you do differently? And
Yeah.
what would you want to accomplish or get done currently in your job? What, because I'm thinking about my financial certifications now. You're right.
Right.
I need to
Mhm.
get it done, and I'm employed, so I should be able to do it. But yeah, tell us what you want to do if you had to do it again.
Yes, and I appreciate that. I think that that's a good question, and thank you for the interview question. I think it's
Absolutely.
good for people to hear how we would approach things, and I'm very careful about not bringing up the negative and how I
Never.
approach that, using neutral words, right?
Hmm.
Like not performing or whatnot. But back to your question. So one of the things that I mentioned in the first half of the show that really made a difference was, I wished that I had not slacked off on a number of the certifications that I know I needed to get. And
Right.
so now that I just recently moved, and now that I'm in this new role, I need to start setting aside a time to keep studying for my senior professional HR certification. I did get my HR metric certification,
Good.
but one thing I would do, and one thing I did that I think was really helpful is I balanced my time. I was working on my SPHR studying during the time, but it's a pretty lengthy study process. I also worked on a HR certification and a business analytics. I mean, HR metric certification and a business analytics certificate.
Okay.
Um, I really recommend and find it extremely important to make sure that you are taking time to bolster your skills, work on certifications,
Hmm.
and do things to improve your overall candidacy. And
Hmm.
so that's something important I did and that you did that I really encourage people to do. Again, I also used LinkedIn and worked on a certification on LinkedIn that I got on communication.
Nice.
So I think that's really important. In addition to that, I I did save money, and I am constantly trying to strive to be a good steward of my finances, but I recommend people take very seriously the importance of setting aside some money every single paycheck,
Yeah.
because you never know when these things are going to come up. And while we're blessed to have unemployment, most of the time unemployment doesn't cover all our costs,
No,
right?
no,
So
not
being prepared and thinking ahead. Also, networking and being proactive
right.
in building relationships in your career field. Um,
Relationships. I gotta do it for
yes,
Foster.
for
Relationships.
Foster, because that honestly, Mez, building those relationships and
Yes.
not quitting just because 'cause you're in a job, right?
Yes.
That is important, and I wanna really encourage people on that. Now,
No ghosting.
uh,
No ghosting
no
us.
ghosting. That's right, and I'm still trying to serve and help people
Yes.
that, reach out to me, that need help with things. I'm very very big on giving back. You mentioned, and you have been a prime example of someone who has given back to the community. You came, to Frisco Connect. You went to South Lake Focus Group. You started joining in the different groups, the HR group. I recommend doing that and serving and giving back even after you're gone, just like you did.
Yeah.
And I realized going through that process that the whole concept of a layoff is a really, really hard one. It's very emotional and
Okay.
it's very hard. So, as individuals that are blessed to be in a job, we need to always be willing to support the job seeker community. And those are some of the things that I learned, and that I was like, wow, even though I volunteer and I do support,
Yeah.
there's a lot more I could do to help people, because when you are the one trying to hold it together mentally and emotionally,
Right.
look for jobs, better yourself, do things to improve yourself while you're in the job search function.
Right.
It can be hard.
Right.
I also was blessed with some friends that helped me out, so that I spent as little money as
Oh,
possible
good. That's nice.
while I was in the transition. So
Sometimes a hot
yeah,
meal just brings
it
somebody
makes
a hot meal. It really like I'll bring over quesadillas. I mean,
oh
they could be
my gosh.
microwavable like burritos that you put salsa on. I mean,
Oh,
it's amazing. You just God will use you to
oh
help
yeah,
and bless people. You don't have to give money. Give somebody a phone call. Sometimes I can't tell you, Dana,
exactly.
how many times a simple phone call
Mm.
literally walks me off the cliff. You
Oh,
know,
yes,
it
absolutely. That is what made a
it
difference.
makes such a
Oh,
difference, and God knows what you can handle and not
yep,
handle, okay? So,
exactly.
if you are just calm and let him talk, because sometimes when I pray, I just kind of fill up the space and not
Yeah,
allow him to talk back to me.
I do that sometimes too.
But it's so important, and there's so many different ways to give, and it doesn't seem like much to us, but it is life or death sometimes for some job seekers, and unfortunately,
Oh, it is.
it's the
Absolutely.
reality.
It's the reality, and I'll be honest with you, Mez, I'm glad you brought up that phone call because I like Don Hartman,
Yeah,
who we had on 2 weeks ago.
yeah,
He, out of the blue reached out to me and shared his story and shared how he made it through the transition.
right.
Rex reached out to me.
Love
You and I
Rex, my
spoke.
second husband. Love you,
Oh my
Rex.
gosh,
Love you.
Rex, what he's amazing. He made a huge difference in
Oh,
what I went through, and so did Dawn, and other people reached out to me too. I had a bunch of nice people that are in our network that
yes.
reached out to me on LinkedIn and encouraged me, and those, like you said, those little things, just a phone call, just a really positive message
Oh,
on LinkedIn. You're gonna be great. You're gonna land quickly. You just need to hear it from people. You
yeah.
just need to hear it from people. And even, it makes a difference having people come to you and say, "You're great. You're awesome. You're gonna land quickly. Don't worry."
Don't worry
I
about
needed to hear it. I did, and it made a
it.
difference. And then clinging to the Lord. I clung to the Lord. I kept reminding myself that I'm not supposed to lean on my own understanding, but I'm supposed to lean on the Lord. Am I really doing that? And then, just staying prayerful even when I couldn't see the end in sight. There were
Right.
days I was just like, I've done all these
I've done
interviews.
it.
I had
Yeah.
all these positive commun conversations. I'm getting great feedback, and then for no reason at all, I get rejected. I'm like, "This is weird." And then I started seeing a lot of other people were experiencing that. So I learned not to take it personally, and I just said, "Okay, that wasn't my assignment from God. If that door closed, that's not where God wanted me to
Mm.
be."
Oh, that brings up a good topic. I got, I'm not gonna say the company, but I had multiple interviews with a very big brand name company, and for a more management type position.
Mhm.
And I went for like a third or fourth interview. I can't remember off the top of my head. But the next day in the news, they had a contractor get killed on site. And if they would have offered me that job, I would have been the manager that would have been blamed for that. Yeah. So I
So
just,
God knows he's
yeah, God
protecting
knows,
us.
because that would have been, I could, as a person,
Yeah.
obviously, I would have been laid off. I would have been fired. Not just laid
Oh,
off, but I would have been fired just
fired.
like the first week of the job. I would
Yeah.
have been
Yeah.
fired, and that would be on my record for the rest of my life.
Oh, exactly,
So,
and God knows what he's doing.
yes,
He does.
I'm glad you brought
And
that up. I'm
yeah, I
like,
mean,
"Oh,
just seeing
God, yeah."
and then I go back and I praise God for what he did during that time because
Right.
I grew professionally, more importantly, I grew spiritually during
Yeah.
that time. And I needed that time with the Lord. And,
Yeah.
I keep reminding myself now, just because things are going great and you're really happy, make sure you're still clinging to the Lord. Make sure you're still prioritizing the Lord because God is
Right.
number one, and I that is one of my biggest things I can look back and say is, not only um did I have a chance to experience and walk through what I'm volunteering to help people walk through to give me even more understanding for their situation, but it grew me spiritually and allowed me to become a much better person in that sense. And I really needed that. It's important. So
Super important.
my
Super
heart is a
important.
lot more sensitive to the whole layoff thing. Not that it wasn't before because I've been volunteering,
Right.
but boy, when you walk through it firsthand, it's
Oh,
hard. But
it's
you're
a
but you're
humbling
gonna
experience.
get through it and you will land. And everybody's timing is different, but you will
Correct.
land. You will get through it.
You
You
will
will
get through it.
succeed. God
Mhm.
is good, but you have to surrender it to God. And then when it's hard, you've got to trust.
Right.
When things are slow, you've got to trust. God
And
will
God
bring it
can't do all the
together.
work, people.
No, you do
If
have
you
to do
can
your
do something
part.
about it, do it. I mean, if you can't
Yes.
do anything about it, leave it to God, but you have to do your part. You have to
Yes.
go out there, see sunlight. I know I'm one to talk. I'm looking in
Totally.
the mirror, but yeah, it's hard sometimes. It really
Yeah,
is to get yourself motivated
it
because
is.
you just don't know.
No.
The fear of the unknown. Oh, I hear music,
I
but
hear
Dana, this has been
music.
such a wonderful, wonderful
Yes.
experience. Thank you so much for
Oh,
being transparent.
Mez. Yes.
Everyone will be back next week. Love you guys. Get better, Foster. Mwah. Bye, guys.
From Burleson to Venus and Grandview to Godley, this is the voice of Johnson County, Joco Community Radio.
If you're trying to quit drinking or doing too many drugs, listen to me.